Okay, do I have a motion to go into open session?
So moved.
We're up here.
Second?
Okay, can we have, we talk about that afterwards.
Bang, bang.
So somehow.
Motion to go into open session,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now, give me a second here. So, gonna call the August 28th Board of Public Works meeting to order. And so have a pledge of allegiance. Can everyone stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Silence. Thank you. So have the roll call. All five members of the board are here: Barbara Curtis, Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, and Bob Heffernan. Andrew Williams, the mayor, is here. Austin Callman, the general manager, and Robin Davis, our assistant general manager, and Mike Hoffman, our legal counsel. So before we start, I guess, first thing is item 11 is going to be struck from the agenda. And then I'd just like to make some opening comments. It's been a rather adventurous week, the last week for both the citizens and for the BPW. So first, I want to apologize for the disruption to, what turned out to be the water service, and then today we had an electrical outage also. But I wanted to ensure everyone that the BPW has been proactive in looking for redundancies, ensuring we have redundancies, and planning for the future. And the specific case on the water outage we had last Tuesday, which was a pipe break under the canal. We had over a year ago started the design effort through GMB to put a new canal crossing in. The design work was 95% or more complete. So we already had anticipated this and had the plans. We had applied for permits on an expedited basis. The state has come back and is expediting those permits. So we've started talking with contractors about doing the actual boring under the canal. So we are hoping that in relatively short order, by spring of next year, we will have a 16-inch canal crossing and are looking at whether we can rehab one of the existing failed lines so that we have additional redundancy and also other backup plans. So I really want to commend the entire staff of the BPW. From the first phone call at 5:06 in the morning or whenever it was, everyone was mobilized. The crews were out there. GMB was out there. We had a dive team out there to respond to this quickly. I want to thank GMB for all their efforts, both beforehand, during the event, and also looking at alternatives. Charlie, Ben, and Vince were out there, and really want to thank them. The dive teams mobilized very quickly the next day to actually inspect the line and determine our path forward. And the city of Lewes for assisting in getting the message out using their email blasts and their websites. So it was really a team effort to get the water back up. So we had the boil water order was less than 24 hours, Austin?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and that is probably the first boil water order I can ever remember.
There was, in my time here, there was one other one that happened during a blizzard when the Front Street project was going on. There was a water main break next to a force main, and there was a boil water notice then. The only other time I can remember.
So, and we'll talk a little bit more, I'll have Austin talk a little more later on in the agenda. It's item 16, I believe. So with that, we'll move on. Unless anyone else has anything to offer on, those thoughts.
I think, I'd just like to say the boil water notice is a precaution. As it turned out, the water was fine.
Yeah, the two
Yeah.
samples were collected soon after we talked with DHSS. One was collected on the beach side of town, one was collected on this side of town. We had to drive both of those up to Smyrna. They were dropped off. It's an 18-hour test. The state ran that test, and then we received those results first thing Wednesday morning, I guess.
And I think I really need to thank all the residents, in general, the outpouring of, positive wishes, concern for the staff that was out there for an extended period of time, really was very heartwarming. And it's one of the reasons why I myself serve on the board. And I think that's probably true for all of us. All right, enough with that, moving on. So the consent agenda. Have a motion to,
I have a correction to offer. On the regular meeting minutes of June 26th.
Is it the same one we discussed, Barbara?
Yes,
Yeah, we can reach back out to Jackie and have those done.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. That's all I have.
a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all's in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Receive the Infomart report. So Jeff?
Good afternoon. So update on the Headworks project. Both screens have been replaced. The compactor is in place. The pistol grid is in place. We are waiting for the alarms to be tied into the RTU, which is supposed to take place Thursday. Once that happens, all the equipment should be able to come online. The only thing we'd be waiting on at that point, I believe, is the vent fans. So all the process upgrades would be done.
It'd be great to see that red stripe we see here on the,
Yes,
on the
yes.
chart.
So when's the
that all
there.
champagne
Yeah, we'll
bottle
have that all
gonna?
for next month.
It's been
break
here a long
open?
time. Thank you.
The Kubota report, which was mentioned last month, did come in. Has anyone gotten a chance to see that? Yes, okay.
No,
It was sent to me. I just got it.
I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if everyone had gotten that or not yet.
Japanese or,
So that's what part of the delay was. It did come in Japanese and had to be translated.
okay.
So it is now in English for everyone's viewing pleasure. The report essentially said that they recommended certain cleaning cycles to be done in a different pattern than traditional, and they estimate a 3 to 5 year life expectancy left on the membranes. After speaking to the representative, in the thickening application, the membranes are only recommended for about 5 years total. We've already had them since, I believe, 2019, so we've already gotten 5 years out of them, and they're saying we have 3 to 5 years left before they'll need to be replaced. So they're actually performing better than expected.
I was a little confused on that part of the report because and I'll have to go back and reread it, we can probably discuss it afterwards. I thought they were saying that the tensile strength of the membranes had decreased.
It decreased, but it was not, they're saying that we should still have enough left for 3 to 5 years before they'll need to be changed out.
Okay.
So-
I must have missed that part. I'm sorry.
So that's what they're saying is 3 to 5 years, and like, in the NBR process, they say those particular membranes can go 10 years. In the thickening process, it's 5. So being that we've already gotten 5 years and have 3 to 5 left, they're actually doing better than expected. We did get a quote to fix the electric manhole drains going to the storm drain. I believe Austin said that Emmett and his crew were going to look at doing that in-house. So obviously with everything going on, we haven't moved forward with that just yet. So we did get a fogger that we're attempting to try out above the digester that will spray an odor control to help mitigate any odor complaints coming off of the digester.
Have we had complaints recently?
Not recently, but I know in the past, Tom has mentioned once or twice that he's come by and had issues.
Well, it's funny, we got a complaint last week, and I drove out there, went by, and the plant smelled wonderful. And then I looked over at the marsh, and it was low tide. There was almost no water to be found, so it was the marsh off-gassing.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the plant smelling wonderful.
Hey,
While the fogger is running, it should smell delightful and like cherries. We had a slightly elevated phosphorus number on our last DMR. We found it was not above permit limits, but it was a 1.78, I believe. We found a busted alum line and repaired that. That has been corrected. Our alum for this month, our phosphorus for this month came in at a 0.85, which is more normal to our limits. And the 5-ton, I believe, Charlie has an update for you on that one when he comes up.
can you expand upon the noteworthy event,
That would be the pH.
the pH?
The pH. So that test was run on a Sunday. We believe it was a contaminated sample. It came in just below the pH limit at a 5.94, so 0.01 under what we have to be at. The continuous monitoring had it at 7.48, which is usually in line with our grab samples. The operator attempted to contact me, and by the time I responded, by the time I was available, for us to pull a second sample would have been selective sampling, was the fear. So we can't just pull samples when we feel like it, otherwise we could have whatever results we want. So the sample in question, I believe, was contaminated. He tested it multiple times on the same sample, but by the time I contacted him and was able to say, hey, pull a new sample, we had passed the time frame and it would have been selective sampling. So we had to be honest about that.
And so, is there gonna be any notice of violation?
No,
or-
I've already spoken to DENREC. They're not concerned.
Okay.
They understand the situation, so it's on the DMR, but there is no NOV.
How did the sample get contaminated?
It could have been.
Why do you believe it's that instead of an actual problem?
So the continuous monitoring was taken at the exact same time as the sample and came up at a 7.48. The sample on the day before and the day after were both in line with norms, which was about a 7.3 to 7.5. And the continuous monitoring, which is taken from the same location essentially, is usually within 0.2 of the grab sample.
So do you think it was contaminated in transit, or?
I believe that either there was something on the probe during the calibration process that got into the sample, or there was something in the vial that hadn't been washed out. So during the calibration process, we used buffers ranging from 4 to 7, and it's possible that some of that had been left on the probe if it had not been rinsed all the way off or it had gotten caught on there.
Okay, I think for the purpose of the public, could you explain, is this a sample that's sent outside for processing?
No, this is not. This is taken
This is
in-house,
internal?
internal,
And
And we
it's
take it
done
every
how
day.
many
Every
times
day.
a month? Every day?
every day.
Okay, so it was one sample out of
One day
30.
out of the month was
Out of the
taken,
month.
and it was point, 0.01 lower than what is required.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No,
On the crane,
yeah,
our goal is to probably bring something back in September. That's our goal right now. So we met internally with Charlie and Reggie, and our goal is to circle back with the board next week with, I believe you guys were gonna talk with Crane One, yeah, already, and then we were gonna circle back with a more formal kind of, plan.
What were the leaks on the caustic line? I saw the alum.
Yeah, we had a small leak on the caustic line that was repaired. That didn't cause any issues with the process.
And how was it discovered?
We had a leak that was contained in the pit, so we removed some unnecessary piping and fixed the leak.
What is the ARV piping?
Air relief valve.
Okay, thank you.
All good?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just one other question. On page 3, right at the top, it says spare pumps are not in stock for, and then it goes on with many pump station control panels in need of repair. Is that a project somewhere, or?
So the pump piece is one that we'll continue to look at, and when we discuss replacing pumps instead of a rebuild, if we go to actually physically replace, we always look at trying to replace it with a pump if it works on the pump curves and on the head pressure side, something that we have in another pump station so that it's interchangeable and not a one-off. The actual control panels themselves, I want to say that you guys were taking a look and the ones like systematically, because remember 16 you guys did,
Yes.
and as time progressed, they were doing them or sending us quotes to do them. Meaning if they were hiring somebody outside, because some of them, they have the old like the octopus connections that are down in the wet well. Also remember that we're doing the floodplain study. So we got the funding through hazard mitigation funds to look at all the pump stations that are in the floodplain to ultimately do final design to meet NFP standards on any of those older pump stations, bringing them up, stainless steel, electrical cabinets that would be placed high enough to where it would be outside the floodplain.
I sort of understand the intent. Is this, those going to turn into projects and hardware
Yeah.
at when?
So we're doing that project that's going on right now. That one has started. And that is a funded project. I believe it's a 90-10. So we'll factor that in. But anytime that we run into more significant issues, I think Inframark, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at any replacements. Like if we run into a situation like at 16, we knew that we were running into issues there. Inframark was going and doing those repairs.
Yeah, so what we've been attempting to do is not rebuilding the pump stations, as we go, but essentially doing that. If we come across a pump station that needs repairs, instead of just patching it, we're trying to replace it with what we need to have. Examples of that would be 16. We did a small change to Drake Knoll where we moved the octopus connection that was in the pit, and we ran a pipe up to an exterior connection box to try to get all the electrical connections out of the wet well.
That goes along with bypass pumping, because we did bypass pumping at 16, 3,
1.
16, 3, 9, 1. I think those are the big ones, and replaced all internal piping at the same time.
A two,
And then
I
you've
believe,
got-
also.
Then you've got PS 17, where the pumps keep breaking down. Are we looking at replacing them?
We are looking at that. We're looking at every option possible to try to get the pumps in question, I believe, are roughly 40 years old.
Yeah.
And we've had them rebuilt several times. It's a hard pump to replace due to the electrical at that station and also the guide rails. The guide rails are very specific to that pump. No other pump manufacturer can do, so we'd have to replace the guide rails. Depending on the pump, we'd have to replace the electrical, and it'll be a full upgrade.
Or 17.
That's Hauling Cove.
It's a small holding cove, not the big one in the back that was done for Savannah Place.
So we've spent 17,000 on rebuilds. What does a new pump cost?
That pump is, I believe a new pump would be roughly $8,000.
The problem is when that station has a 4-inch discharge force main, so you can't just put a normal pump in there. And right now, single phase is at that station. So the question is whether or not we could run 3-phase out of the existing transformer to the pump station, convert the electronics within the panel to 3-phase, and put a 3-phase pump in there that would be large enough to overcome the head pressure of a 4-inch force main on the discharge end. The other option was essentially trying to put a pipe within a pipe and doing a smaller pump. But then you get into whether or not you would have to like fill that pipe at the same time so that you wouldn't have like cavitation within as the force main kicked on. It's an odd situation. It's a very large discharge force main for one small pump station.
So you're looking at that.
We're
trying to come
looking
up
at that
with
very
a
intently, yes.
plan.
Well, maybe at some point you could
Update us.
give us a list and say, this is what needs to be done.
Because
and-
this pump station played into
How
that
many
exact
dollars?
question that you asked, whether or not there was a pump that we could replace.
I can make a suggestion, because this paragraph has been in here for years. Maybe what we really need is a list of pump stations, and then the actions as they're being taken or are planned to be taken.
That would be nice.
Yeah, because
I know I kind of gloss over it anymore, but then the pump station 17 thing came up. And another question, what kind of bulb costs $574?
That would be the UV bulbs for the disinfection system.
Okay.
So we can get
Good job.
the UV, those UV bulbs are 500, I believe 574 a piece. That is from the manufacturer Trojan. We can buy aftermarket bulbs at a reduced price. If we use those bulbs, Trojan will not service the system if we have an issue.
Is that called black? No.
It's called smart to use what they have.
Yeah. It looks like there's some additional data in the reports this month, or am I just
So
forgetting?
the only change is that the Veolia report was sent attached to the original report, where usually that gets sent as 2 different PDFs.
Yeah,
this portion of that?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah,
VO.
this is the VO, this is from the memory manufacturer.
Right.
Yeah.
Just seemed longer than. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they actually have changed the format.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 5. Me. So we continued discussions with Sussex County and the BPW and Rehoboth Beach. And as everyone I think is probably aware, on Monday, September 9th, we are presenting to Rehoboth Beach commissioners at their workshop. That is at 9 o'clock in the morning. We are not the first item on the agenda, though. I can't remember where we are.
I haven't even looked at that agenda.
Yeah. So anyway, we will be there, Austin, myself, and Barbara, with Todd Lawson and Hans Medler to report back on the questions they had from the last meeting and to further the discussions. There'll be no action at that meeting. It is a workshop, and it will be then taken up at their next board meeting or commissioners meeting, which is in about 2 weeks after that. We attended an APPA-sponsored grid hardening. I don't know what you want to call it. It wasn't a seminar, it was a discussion There's,
It's a case study. So they picked 4 utilities across the country. And what it was is they're coastal communities that are dealing with resiliency issues. And so what they're doing is they're talking with these individual communities, looking at what they've done to date, where they want to go in the future, and how might they get to that point? What are the struggles, funding mechanisms, et cetera. So if I can recall, I know one was supposed to be sourced out of California, one was Key West, one was New Bern, North Carolina. We were the third, and then, like I said, they were focusing another one on the West Coast to see what their needs are, the challenges that they're facing, et cetera. So it's pretty good. We were on the phone with them, for about 2 hours. So hopefully it leads to a case study. I believe it's going to be like a public document that gets published. So we're greatly appreciate that ability to have, the ability to talk to them about it, and kind of see where it goes from there.
Did they contact us to participate? Is that it?
Actually, they contacted DMEC, and DMEC reached out to us, being that from a DMEC standpoint, we were one of the only coastal communities.
and this has been a major topic at the APPA engineering conferences. And this spring, the conference I attended, there was one whole track that was strictly on resiliency and grid hardening. And some of the missteps that communities had made in attempting to harden their grid, which actually made things worse, and others about keeping people informed of what was going on. So I think this is a good effort, and it's a national effort, so we should gain a lot from that. Had the BPW city leadership meeting. We had a city BPW discussion on Hornkill, and we had a special board meeting last week on the failed canal crossing. And with that, I'll turn it over to Austin for his report.
Thank you, Tom. So Teal continues to work on the construction internal at Donovan Smith. It looks like everything's going to be buttoned up service-wise, meaning all residents will be connected to water and sewer, I believe, by Labor Day. So that, is good news. It's a project that continues to move along, providing water and sewer to these folks. Much needed project. Work continues on the wastewater treatment plant headworks project, as Jeff had mentioned. GMB and staff actually worked with DHSS and DENREC, finalizing some questions that came back for the 4th Street, Johnson Park Avenue project, and also the Hornkill project. So we had those meetings. It should be all good to go. I think it goes to the subcommittee next week, and then it'll go to WEAC 2 weeks after, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. So we'll get that feedback then. Obviously today we had, I was supposed to be, I should mention that a lot of our staff were heading to TriCon, which is a local conference down in Ocean City. It's a very good conference, a lot of local vendors, a lot of local companies, and a lot of local utilities. WFSC is a very big entity that's there. So it's a really good event. So far it's me, Kim, Robin, Barbara, Eric, and Chris. Eric and Chris are taking continuing education classes. Barbara was there. We kind of split classes that we were going to take. Obviously, I had classes today, but I left early for the water main thing. So we'll continue to go tomorrow and Friday. There's actually a presentation on the Board of Public Works at the event. I believe it's 11 or 11:30 on Friday. It's one of the last presentations, and it was our work that we did with the EPA. So that'd be really good. We'll get to listen to that, and they asked if we wanted to chime in or not. We could.
Participating in that or putting that on?
It's EPA's 30-minute session. As Tom mentioned, we did the grid hardening. We continue to meet with the BPW, the city, and GMB on the grant, kind of like subcommittee group that's meeting. It's beneficial. We're kind of going through all these different grants that we can go for collectively as a group. We are working on the lead and copper rule mailings. Those should be going out probably in the next week or so. for anybody else that we don't have any information on. It's a huge project. We're not the only ones going through it, but we're trying to get poised and positioned to be able to submit what we have so far ahead of the October 16th deadline, and then there's continual steps that we'll have to go through as part of that. We also took a visit to Newark's our water treatment facility to see their new activated carbon and reverse ion exchange project that they put in place. We actually toured that with Rehoboth, so that was good. I did want to do a shout out. Sharon completed her bachelor's degree. She's not here, but she completed her bachelor's degree, so a lot of progress internal from BPW staff on continuing education. I think, is there anybody from DMEC online? Mike? Oh, Mike, there we go. So go ahead and you can give, this is Maya from DMEC. So she is gonna go through, and I don't wanna steal the thunder, she's gonna go through and basically formally invite you guys to go to the annual dinner. Didn't want to steal your thunder.
I am, and I'll just hand these out so you guys can pass them around. So yes, so as you mentioned, my name is Maya Krasker. I'm the Energy Services Manager at DMEC. And as most of you guys know, DMEC is the joint action agency that provides services to our 9 members, obviously including you guys. So in addition to power supply, we provide energy efficiency services, demand response programs, and trainings. We also provide state and federal representation to protect against legislative and regulatory changes that could negatively impact our members. As you may be aware, these past few years, we've been active with issues pertaining to the high costs due to the closing of Indian River, and of course, the subsequent high prices of the capacity markets as a result of the generation shortage on the peninsula. As the industry continues to transition towards a cleaner burning generation, agencies need to come together to work to ensure reliability during what is being called the energy transition. That's kind of what brings me here to you guys today. So DMEC is hosting its annual dinner on September 18th, and we just wanted to personally invite you all, on the everyone on the council, to attend. So we're going to be doing something a little bit different this year, and for the first time, we'll be hosting a panel of industry professionals who are going to be talking and providing their personal insights on the state of the energy market and where they see it going. So first, we're going to have Scott Corwin, who's the president and CEO of our national association, APPA, or American Public Power Association. And he will be providing an overview of the markets. Then we're going to have Adam Ward, who's the senior VP of the American Municipal Power, or AMP. And he will be speaking about the federal emissions regulations. Next, we have Brian Lee of ACES, who will be talking about generation mixes, our portfolio, and how we may be able to better align and fill in generation as needed, especially as the load grows. And lastly, we will have Dustin Thompson, president of the Sierra Club, who will talk about environmental concerns as we morph towards more renewables in the state portfolio. Our president and CEO, Kimberly Schlichting, will be the moderator of the panel, which we ensure will be a engaging and educational experience for everyone. We hope that you will put this event on your calendars and that you'll join us for our annual dinner, which will be commemorating our 45th year as a joint action agency representing all of you as our members. So, hope to see you guys there. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. And that's all I
Do you
have.
want to give her back the extra ones?
We can,
I've already got it.
Yeah, I
I've
already got
already
them.
received it.
here, we'll hold them. So I.
Richard got mine. It's in one bag.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Austin? Did you have anything else on?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so then we move on to 7. Open forum, general discussion on the agreements for Mitchell's Corner. I turn it over to Mike Hoffman.
Sure, just very briefly, so what is before you is the development agreement for the Mitchell's Corner Residential. This is out of the city, so it's a utilities-only agreement. It is essentially the form agreement. I had circulated to the board the red line, which shows the updates were minor, other than just changing names and those details. One update that Barbara did catch on the first page, the final whereas, that says specifications for sanitary sewer. It should say specifications for water, like the rest of the agreement, which pertains to water. I will make that edit, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward in that it is the form that you've seen before, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions?
No?
So,
I should mention one actually, so the difference, and it does show in the red line, is there is an easement provided for monitoring wells. And that location is, it's exhibit A, showing the approximate location of saltwater monitoring well. And the idea there was to make sure that you're monitoring against saltwater intrusion. So that has been, that will be documented, but in the agreement it says they must grant the easement in this approximate location.
And we worked with the developer on that and DENREC, because the original location of our saltwater intrusion well, which was looking at like the Wolf Neck area, they actually denied. So we went back, we knew this developer was coming before us. They were actually putting in 2 very shallow monitoring wells as part of their approval process with Sussex County. So we had asked whether or not they would be amicable to having us put one in the general area that theirs is, which is very close and adjacent to our well field.
Sussex County was very supportive of us getting the 2 monitoring wells.
And
as
how
part of
deep is
this
that?
It'll be 155 feet at a minimum.
With different zones or?
Nope, so it will almost mimic our current wells, so that it will check for chlorides. That's the biggest thing you wanna check for
Yeah,
with saltwater.
and how far away? from the
From
well
existing wells? Probably about 1,500 feet closest to well 1. I'm gonna shoot that from the hip.
So you got some time if you detect problems.
We wanted to do one located more closer to the ocean to see the impact, like coming from the ocean, coming from the state park. DENREC actually denied that one, so they wanted something closer, which that's where we landed on this one. And this is only one of a few that are going in. I do want to preface that. We're locating them strategically around Lewes to make sure that we can catch it as it comes. Like the Canary Creek area, we talked with the developer for Lewes Waterfront Preserve about putting one there. So we're looking at like the Canary Creek Ebenezer Branch influence on the other side, trying to get as close to the ocean to see what that influence is. The canal is another one that we're looking at. But again, we worked with the developer on this.
There was not an attachment showing the location, right? I didn't have it.
It was in
Oh.
it wouldn't show up on the red line, but it was in the clean.
Ah, okay. I only looked at the red line. All right. And question, does the county pay for those wells? Does the state pay for them? Or
Which ones?
The saltwater intrusion monitoring wells?
No, the BPW pays for those. It was actually a condition, the saltwater intrusion plan was a condition of the new water allocation permit, which was issued in 23. But we've worked with the state on this for over a year, trying to nail down our plan, saltwater intrusion plan.
All right, any other questions? Item 8.
We need a motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see this was for action. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the Mitchell Corners Development Agreement? Actually, oh yeah, Do a motion to approve the Mitchell Corners development agreement with the one markup as shown on page 1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it's 5-0. And open forum, general discussion on appointment of 2 members to serve on the city and BPW ad hoc steering committee that will discuss the planning and development of the municipal complex at the Army Reserve, Schley Avenue Master Plan as it relates to the city and BPW owned properties and the current city hall. So the purpose of this committee is to take a 100,000-foot look at the properties. It is not to do any design work. It's not to choose a contractor. It's not to choose an architect engineer, anything like that. It's just the feasibility, what we should be paying attention to set up for down the line discussions. Andrew, you agree with it? Okay. So,
Maybe talking about those things, you know, how do we make those decisions? Do we form committees, that kind of thing, yeah, but not making actual decisions on the future of the site itself. Yeah.
so Andrew's gonna be on that committee from the city side,
And Councilman Saliba as well.
Saliba. And so what I'm suggesting or appointing is myself and Presley to be on it for our side. And then we will bring back to the board any discussions to present to the board and get board feedback. Do we really need an action on that?
I believe you want that.
Yes, because you're effectively authorizing that steering committee.
Okay.
And so consistent with what you said, to come back with a recommendation.
Right. So do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against.
So the record show it's 4-4, 1 against. Okay. Open forum, general discussion on the strategic plan. So I know everyone's put comments in to Austin on that. I know everyone put their comments into Austin. They seem to be numerous enough. Sharon has done an unbelievable job, as usual, of compiling them. So I think the most appropriate thing is to set a workshop so that they can be discussed in public. So I'd like to have a motion to set up a workshop, and then we can choose dates.
I don't know if you have to make a motion to set up a workshop.
Okay.
If you want to, we can poll everybody, or we can try and select a date here. Completely up to you.
I think we're here.
What
But
about Thursday, the 12th of September?
I'm gonna be going
Okay.
from the 11th to the 23rd.
Okay, so then,
and frankly, with everything that's going on, I think that's a little bit too soon.
okay, so,
But you're out the week after Austin.
yes. So,
Yeah, I mean, we really would like to get it implemented, but I mean, the events that have overtaken us, I think,
Does council need to be present for the workshop? Because you've got.
I've got my calendar.
Yeah, right.
are you going away after,
In November.
oh, you're doing November?
Oh, November.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll be around in October.
I was gonna say October 5th sounds like a good date.
What about October, do we have a preference in day? Like if I said October 7th?
No, I don't think that's fair to our council.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I mean, I can also have coverage too, so don't let my schedule.
What about October 3rd?
At this point,
They wanted Mondays.
I got an appointment somewhere.
one of Mondays,
They wanted Mondays.
Oh,
what, Spot Stevens?
Yeah.
McCoy?
Oh.
Sharon corrected me.
Thank you, Sharon.
but what about the 30th of September? Are you gone then?
I know that
No, 30th of November is out for me.
Oh, okay.
How about, so
No.
going back to, how about the 7th,
7th of
October?
October.
yeah, but that would be. I mean, not to.
I can have coverage, and that's.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to have Mike here. Perfect.
We'll talk about you though.
I can do the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. How long are you suggesting this?
Judging by the comments, I mean, I didn't read them, but I saw the red lines that Sharon put together.
Sharon said 2 to 3 hours. I'm getting live, up to date. So
I think every bit of 3 hours. I would suggest that we somehow incorporate, we have had no input from our key ratepayers. Somehow we should have, I mean, we're talking to ourselves. I think in a strategic plan, you need people from outside that you serve provide their input. So I would, we either create a committee or get them to participate with this, I think. Because I've never been
Austin, what were
involved
you
in
gonna
this.
say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when we discussed this, and it was just going along with what you said, Spot Stevens and McCoy did send individual surveys to key accounts. And key accounts would be your large industrials, your SPIs, your BBs.
Yeah, but there's nothing like,
I'm
Sitting-
not
yeah.
downplaying it,
I know.
not downplaying it.
nothing like sitting around and getting conversations about having, have a facilitator there and doing this, so the ratepayers get involved.
But they can provide their input at the workshop.
Well, I think they should be invited as,
Oh, we can invite them. I'm saying, but I mean, that workshop would be that forum.
yeah, I think it would have been better if we had a committee as part of this process. But we could do it that way, because I think that's one thing that we're missing.
So the workshop, I think, is gonna be a start of, we've got a whole bunch of comments just from this group.
You probably wanna, depending on how you want your involvement, if you're looking for more involvement, then you would probably aim for a late afternoon or evening meeting than you would 11 o'clock or a 1 o'clock, if you're wanting working individuals to attend.
I leave that to the consensus of the board.
I'm good with the evening.
Well, if it's gonna be a 3-hour meeting,
Maybe 4 o'clock.
yeah, I say no later than 6. I mean,
And
because
who's bringing the pizza?
So we wanna shoot, what we'll do is, we'll do 2 dates, the 7th and the 14th. That's what we'll give them, just in case. So we'll do the 7th or the 14th. Oh no, you're gonna have council meeting, right, Mayor, on the 14th? So we'll shoot for the 7th, and if that doesn't work, then we'll re-poll the board, and we'll shoot for a 4 o'clock meeting.
Will that be here or Rollins or?
We'll have to check availability.
okay.
But we'll do one or the other. That's what we'll shoot for.
Okay, just for my understanding, so we have a lot of comments. And what started out as an update to the 5 year ago strategic plan, at least the red lines I saw over Sharon's shoulders, and the extra ones I gave her, sort of indicate that we're looking at a rewrite, a complete,
That's what I thought
the
this was.
situation has changed
Actually,
rather
this was not,
substantially.
this was not an update, this was a rewrite.
Oh, I thought it was an update.
Yeah, because
Well,
I
it wasn't
understood
going
it.
back to ground zero like we did last time, but it was, most of what was in the original strategic plan has been completed. And, correct me if
I'd
I'm
argue
wrong.
with that, but no longer relevant is,
Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever the term,
and so much has happened. I mean, even in the past, in the past 5 years, and even the past year or two.
so I think
we
we're
have a
looking
lot
at
of things
a
we can
new,
discuss,
a new
yeah.
direction or,
Rather than just taking what was discussed 5 years ago and updating them.
Yeah.
I think we've got other things we've got to talk about. And a lot of them are for our strategic ratepayers. I think we have to get their thoughts, otherwise we're just talking to ourselves.
so I'm not sure if what's being proposed is we scrap what we've done and go back to square one. That kind of sounds like what I'm hearing.
If we're glad to do,
I agree with Press, certainly major accounts and representatives ought to be invited, but they don't even have anything to shoot at yet. And it's like agree or disagree and whatever. I kind of think we need to, in a public meeting, sort of work out a target to address.
I remember the first strategic plan, that's what we did. The facilitators, Scott Stevens, guys, had several meetings. Got started and got the business set up. Had a committee of ratepayers involved, and, let them discuss with the facilitator and our presence, what they see as their thoughts about BPW and what we do right and what we do wrong and what other things we should be doing.
Do have the survey results.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be defensive, but I thought that was what we hired Spot Stephen and McCoy to do this time, was last time it was the first time we had done a strategic plan. So there was a lot more base work that had to be done. This time, they sent surveys out to every customer and then to specific high-volume users and to get their input. And they compiled this, and now we're trying to present it to the public. And that's what the workshop is for.
If I can make a suggestion, I think there's different ways to tackle it, but to Barbara's point, you did have a survey, and the survey informed the draft. I think to Bob's point, where you are right now is you've got a workshop where the board is having a public discussion on that survey and this draft. Once that's done, then a next step can be, if it be the will of the board, it would be sensible to present that to the public and say, here's how we are, bring us your comments. And then you kind of have an iterative process. But I think what you're getting at, Press, so they did have the survey, and so that informed that view.
And I'm totally okay with that. I just didn't know if I was hearing that we throw out what we've done and start over again. So Mike's suggestion, I'm all in favor of, and that's where I thought the purpose of the workshop was, and to invite the public, and the public will be able to comment, but we could set a comment period after that.
Well, the comments we got were good, but, they were most of them on, the ready to serve charge, brown water, things like that. And we didn't give them an opportunity to at least meet with key people and get their input, and spend a few hours talking to them about bringing out these issues. That's what we did the last time, and it worked very well. And I thought, rather than responding to what we have now, which is the bones of the original thing, and being just responding to them, we really haven't discussed as we would in a workshop of our own about some of the issues that we should add to the list that were prepared the last time. We've been responding to the original one every year and upgrading it, updating it. This to me was just a bigger upgrade than the last.
We can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, okay.
Press, the intent for this round, because it was actually a 10-year strategic plan, so it was intended to be a continuation of that update. But if we want, I think that's why Patrick decided that we didn't necessarily need to bring the panel back in. But if that's the direction we want to go, I can reach out to Patrick and see if we can set something up like that.
Well, I don't ever remember it being a 10-year update.
Yeah, in 2019, it was a 10-year strategic plan.
When we decided to do this one, I thought we were just talking about a strategic plan, and which was, for many organizations, like a 5-year effort. They go back basically to start and start over again.
I don't disagree. 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So, consensus of the board? What does the board want?
I think we should have the workshop to go over the draft. And subsequent to that, figure out what's the best way to add in additional input beyond the surveys that were taken and have been incorporated, as my understanding, into this draft, if you could call it.
But to include Mike's suggestion of reaching out, inviting the key accounts to attend and to comment at the meeting also. And then we could determine the.
And are
comment
they,
period.
are they key accounts being given copies of the draft ahead of time?
I would think so.
Well, I'm just asking, that's fine, but
And again, I mean, I think that's sensible, and it's the will of the board. I think that having your discussion at the workshop and then having a next step being engaging and actively ensuring there is engagement in whatever strategy that is. And you've got a consultant group who can assist with that, whether it's direct outreach, whether it's just at the meeting, whatever that is, to ensure that the concepts are being vetted with the stakeholders, I think makes a lot of sense. But I think that can also be something to talk about at the workshop.
If the goal of the workshop was to allow the board to talk, because, FOIA prevents you from being able to talk outside of a public forum. So it was really to bring everybody together, to have the conversation on what was received, discuss kind of where you want to go. And you can use that workshop as that specific tool, and then let that guide you in whatever direction you want to go too.
Because if you remember, Press, when we did the original strategic plan, it was you and I, because we couldn't bring the entire board on board, that created the draft that we then brought to the board because of FOIA. So, I mean, ideally, this is not the way I would do it, but we're a government entity and we're required to. So there's no way other than the workshop where we can all, the 5 of us, could discuss it and collectively discuss it with our customers.
Fine.
So,
I think we can say the workshop is to review the results of the survey, which we haven't done publicly, and which are confusing, like all surveys, and plot a plan from there to either throw out and start anew, or that an update of the existing one is sufficient. And I think from there you go to the next step, which I firmly believe is involving stakeholders and so on, but you've got kind of an update that starts from this point forward rather than, many of the things from 5 years ago are no longer relevant.
I think we should, identify those individuals that we would like to have participate so that they feel like they're truly going to be, a part of the process.
The question I would have is, do you want to discuss it with the board before you take it to the stage of having it's almost like a public hearing?
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, where
Where we are now, that's the way to do it.
I think so.
Yeah.
so start with
I
having.
mean, it's a public meeting.
It's still a public
People
meeting.
can get up and say, I disagree with everything that's been said so far, but we got to put it in some focus or
Yeah.
you get,
So we'll shoot for October 7th, 4 p.m. and we'll either do it in council chambers or the Rollins Center. And we'll have that kind of shape where we go from here. And we'll talk with Patrick and the team and kind of give them a heads up of how this discussion went and kind of like the ideas that were being thrown around and kind of shape how that discussion would happen on the 7th, which then could lead to a future discussion, future meeting, future public hearing, kind of like that path, framework, et cetera.
So I would suggest we go to the Rollins Center. First of all, it provides for a better dais, and it also will allow for more people than chambers here.
if it's available,
That's
because
exactly
we're
where I
in
was going with
If Sharon
election
can check
season
on,
and early voting.
if Sharon can check on the availability of Rollins.
Yep.
All right, so what I hear is that we're gonna set a workshop tentatively for October 8th. It will be for us. 7th, okay, I'm sorry. And we'll present the draft, allow the board to discuss the draft. We're gonna invite the key accounts. And from there, we can determine the next step forward.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I don't think you need a motion.
To set even the, okay. The other ones I didn't want to have an action motion on. I'm trying to make up for it. Come on, guys, cut me some slack. Open forum, general discussion on the resolution related to the AFFF settlement, information, discussion, action, and I guess, Mike, I'll turn this over to you.
Mike and I will tag team this one. So in short, the board had done in the past and had sent out the results they've received, testing related to PFAS. We did elective testing through actually the state of Delaware, DNREC, back in 21. We sent a letter out soon after. We resent a letter out following that. As the new regulations were kind of being shaped. And the new regulations take it from 70 parts per trillion down to 4 parts per trillion. So as with that, I'm sure a lot of people have heard and have understood that there are a lot of players in the PFAS game, if I would say that, contributors. And through those contributors, there are settlements that are starting to come through. What you have in front of you today is essentially the ability for the board to confirm its place within that settlement for any future investment it would make regarding PFAS, whether it be treatment or anything like that. Mike, chime in whenever you want. I think that's pretty much the summary. I would add that we aren't the only municipality doing this. Milton recently did it, and I believe Rehoboth is doing something very similar.
And well done. I
Yep.
pretty much check the boxes. So just a couple things keep in mind. It is largely because the board was proactive in testing that you had the data that allowed you to be eligible for phase 1 claims. And so there are a number of players involved. There's a number of class actions and settlements The board, because you have that data, you're able to make a claim. It's a pot of money that's available. The timing of that, again, it's got to work through the process, and that's being worked out, but you're able to make that claim. And then again, just to emphasize, I think Rehoboth and Milton and other municipalities inside and outside of Delaware are doing the same thing. So what's before you right now is that there's a specific settlement on Tyco and BASF. And in order to, you can either opt in, which is to take advantage of the settlement process, or you can opt out. If you opt out, then you are on your own to go and pursue action against Tyco and BASF. The formula is similar to the other settlements which are out there. Just to round out the discussion, you all know it's DuPont and 3M. So it does fit neatly within there. But my recommendation to the board is to opt in. Should you decide to opt in, we do have a resolution in front of the board. I would recommend that that be adopted through the resolution approval process.
And Mike, there's no cost
There's no cost to the
and
board.
maybe monetary benefit.
Correct. Any cost that there would be attorney's fees, and that would come out of the award. But that's correct. There's no cost, but there is a likely monetary benefit.
The only downside is we lose the opportunity to start our own suit against DuPont, Tyco, 3M, and a bunch of other places.
Correct. The specific resolution in front of you is Tyco and BASF.
To the point, the cost of pursuing that litigation on our own would outweigh any payment we would ever receive. This is a class action suit nationally, and so it's sharing the cost. You share the benefits, but you share the cost too. Okay, do I have a motion? Any other questions? Do I have a motion to read the resolution by title only, which in itself is fairly long?
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation and read it by title only.
20 seconds, Mike, go.
We got a motion. We need a second.
Hold on.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 24-004. A resolution authorizing the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes, Lewes BPW, to participate in the proposed class action settlements with Tyco Fire Products LP individually and as successor in interest to the Ansel Company and ChemGuard Inc., hereinafter referred to as Tyco defendants, and BASF Corporation in the public water systems portion of the multi-district litigation matter in re Aqueous Film Forming Foams Product Liability Litigation MDL 2:18MN2873RMG relating to PFAS contamination of drinking water, authorizing the general manager to complete all documentation and execute all releases and agreements necessary to participate in the settlement with Tyco and BASF Corporation in the water providers portion of the MDL, and authorizing outside counsel to continue to pursue litigation related to PFAS, providing an effective date. Mr. President, resolution number 24-004 has been read by title only, placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
So in the. Okay, now do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0.
Yep.
Go forth. Item 12. Open forum, general discussion of, I lost my place. Open forum, general discussion on proposal to add additional offices to the BPW upstairs office space, information, discussion, action, and at this point, I'll turn it over to Austin.
Yeah, so Robin and I are going to tag team this one. This has kind of been a long time coming. So we worked with Morgan in GMB's firm. She is an architect. We drafted up plans to modify the second floor of the BPW office space. And over the past couple months, we have gone through trying to solicit quotes. And through that process, we've gotten 4. I know it reads 3 on here, but we've gotten 4. I handed out the 4th one, which wasn't included. So we got one from Kuhn, EDIS, Douglas and Company, and One Call Service. The low proposal or low bid was roughly $30,000. That was from Douglas and Company. The short answer of what the work actually is, the current conference room would be bifurcated out to include 2 office spaces, and then Sharon's office, which when you come up the elevator is just an open room, that would be closed in to create an office for Sharon. We did have a piece in here which had a key card for the elevator. We pulled that out because we had some difficulty on coordination and responses, so we just left that out in advance. So what you have in front of you is essentially to draw or to construct what is on those plans. Is that correct? No, that's it. We're tag teaming this one, so.
And the reason the one was left out is, if you notice, the One Call Service, the price did not include moving any sprinkler heads if needed. So that's why it was originally left out. And it's actually higher than the lowest bid anyway.
It's still in the what they call a relocate elevator call button.
No, what that is it's not the call button, the security button. Without showing you a picture, there's a thing in the ceiling where Sharon's wall is going to be. It's going to be inside Sharon's office. It needs to be moved in the hallway.
Oh.
It's not the call button.
Okay.
It's
I didn't see
It's
it.
like a little
some kind of
sensor.
heat sensor.
No, I didn't see it in the other.
Yeah, they called this out specifically in this one.
Okay, okay. Are you recommending that we award to this
To
company?
Douglas.
I'm not familiar with them. How long have they been around and what work have they done?
I'm not sure. I know they've done work in the city. They're actually doing a residential home remodel in Polytown Village. I personally have never have any dealings with them.
Are they familiar with this type of work?
Yes.
Commercial work?
Yes. Yep. He said he's done commercial work before.
I mean,
Yes.
it's 3.5 walls. I mean, for reference.
I noticed when Sharon's office is gonna have a door on it now. Right now, somebody goes up the elevator, they can talk to somebody.
That is correct.
So there's no, what if somebody goes up the elevator, they have to, what do they do?
Our goal with this is that they would go to the front office, and if they need somebody upstairs, the front office would call up, and it would either be Sharon, Robin, myself, and whoever's in the other 2 offices.
Okay.
And part of it was safety too, because anybody that walks in that office can go right up the elevator and go right to Sharon.
Right,
Sharon does not have any walls.
right. That's why you gotta get the card key or whatever for
Yeah.
the elevator.
She wanted a window. We got her a wall.
Aw. I noticed the Douglas and Company quote, under hardware on the second page. It says provide and install 1 door set for interior door. That's not enough, is it?
That's an old one. They did revise it.
Yeah.
Because it is 2. Because there's gonna be 3 doors total because there's 3 offices.
Yeah.
But we're relocating one of the doors. The door that goes to
Right.
the conference room
Yes.
can be used for one of the offices.
And
So
we
this-
confirmed with the
Yes.
other door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, again, my only question was, are they able to do this job?
Yeah.
We feel comfortable.
Okay.
And we're doing this because
We don't have space. That is the short answer.
who's gonna go in those offices?
So you got to follow me on this one.
That's all right, I mean,
Yeah, so the
I'll
idea
believe
is we are putting Kim upstairs along with a backup, basically a second financial person, accountant, which we promoted internally. Downstairs, Mike and Josh share an office, which is the biggest office down there. We're talking about putting nicer cubicles in there, keeping those two in. The server room moves from my old office into the small room that has the plotter in now. That room, which was my old office, becomes a new conference room. Not, you can have the door open for a public meeting. It will fit our board, but it's not necessarily the same thing as what we have upstairs. Kim's
Okay,
old
that's right.
office.
I lost you, Josh.
That's the plan.
And it's better having,
No one will be in the same spot.
and it's better having a conference room downstairs in case somebody has to, public coming in and out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's I know we have the elevator, but if you got handicap or, accessible.
Okay, we have a motion to approve accepting the quote from Douglas and Company for the upstairs office space renovation.
Motion that we approve the proposal by Douglas and Company for this renovation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it's 5-0. Old business, open forum general discussion on the potential uses of ARPA funds allocated from the city of Lewes totaling $900,000. I know this has been a long-term discussion. I think we may finally have,
Yeah.
and Austin, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
So first, I want to give a shout out to Ellen Lorraine. So she allowed us, and she had mentioned to us, I was under the assumption that you could allocate these via a resolution, basically saying this is where we want the funds to use. They actually have to be contractually obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by 2026. So there's kind of a time frame associated with it, which means you have to be they have to be allocated via contractually within an agreement. So going back and looking at what's coming up and what can we do here, our idea was to allocate the $900,000 to the water tower project. We're working with GMB to get that out. That $900,000, because it has to be contractually obligated, we are how far? Probably 45, 60 days from being able to put that out being able to receive bids.
October 1st is our goal.
Yeah.
So back probably before the board at their November, early December meeting.
So what we would be able to use is that fund could go towards either the increasing in size. Obviously, you looked at what happened in this most recent event. It would give us elevated storage, which we desperately need for the fire flow piece. So we can use it to go from 750 to 1 million gallons. We can use it to offset the cost of the 750,000 gallon project. Or we could do like a change order to the common header project. But that is our thought process because of the time frame that we have to allocate it contractually. Any strenuous objections? I don't know if they have to vote on that.
Well, actually, I think we need to vote on this one, right?
I mean, so what you're saying, it has to be in the contract, you have to award the contract. So you will approve it when the contract comes forward. But I think that you've
The
given
concept.
direction to staff to make sure that happens.
That's good. Direction given. Or received.
Open forum general discussions on the review of the BPW bylaws. So this is Mike's.
So this is just a continuation from the prior meeting. The board asked us to come back with proposed revisions to the bylaws, specifically when it comes to placing items on the agenda, and that 2 members can submit a request for an agenda item. So that has been put in a resolution. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to start with? So do I have a motion to approve, to have the resolution read by title only? It's a short one, Mike.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 24-005, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes amending its bylaws. Mr. President, resolution number 24-005 has been read by title only, placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
A motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Open forum, general discussion on the approval of the 22-23 fiscal year audit. Information discussion. So Kimberly's down in Ocean City. Is she on the line?
Mike, can you promote Kim? Yeah, no, I'm gonna see if it allows her, cause she can't actually look at her microphone until she's promoted.
Yeah, and I should have said she's down in Ocean City at the AWWA conference.
Short answer, while she's working to get online, is the only comments we received were from Barbara, and we agreed with all the comments that were provided from Barbara. They were very minor.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, all right. Do you want me to go over them, Austin?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So on page 9, we'll be putting a $sign in front of the 0.009737 for the special increase that we did in the manager discussion and analysis. And also to spell out UFS for Utility Financial Solutions.
See it on page. Oh, just changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then on note 9, page 26, the last paragraph has drinking water twice. It should say drinking water and clean water. Note 15 on page 30, the second paragraph, that's going to be reworded to show that we are receiving office space and providing ground lines, because right now it reads it and like we're providing both.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Three minor changes, no issues from staff side. I don't believe the accountants had any issues, did they?
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I've got a couple of questions, and maybe you all know the answers to these, but when does something become construction in progress? Because we have $9+ million of construction in progress, and I'm not, what are we building?
Kim, do you want to take a shot first?
Yeah.
When-
Construction in progress is any project that is underway that is going to become an asset but has not been completed yet to become an asset.
So if a $3 million project is approved, comes construction in progress?
Not until the project starts, physically starts.
Okay, it starts on January 1st. $10,000 is spent. Is that $3 million in construction in progress, or is that $10,000 in construction in progress?
Only what we spent.
Only. So maybe at some time, we could know what, I believe it's $9 million of construction in progress is.
We can pull that because it's right in our accounting system.
Okay, please.
So is that a suggestion for the audit to actually show that, or
No, I think that's
did you
not,
want that just as a talking point when it's presented?
I read it and
Probably.
didn't know what it was.
Yeah, my guess is probably sit down, Kim, schedule it with Bob, or just get a document that has it in, share with Bob, and then kind of go from there.
Okay, perfect.
I think it might be good to share with the entire board.
Yeah.
Yeah, just,
Well, and then there's, early on, there's the change called GASB 97 or something? What was that?
That's GASB, it's Government Accounting Standards Board.
Yeah, and how much
So
was,
it has to do with how we're reporting the information.
and how much was the adjustment for that?
It isn't an actual financial adjustment, it's just a reporting adjustment.
So it was zero?
It has zero financial implications.
Okay. It was GASB 87. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the only one that actually affected us in our reporting. It's how we report our lease revenue.
More of a process on how you report it, not actually a number change.
Correct.
And then on page 6, if you do go to non-operating revenues, you sort of realize that if you subtract out impact fees, we're negative in non-operating revenues the last 2 years, positive this year. And that doesn't seem to be a healthy balance.
What I will tell you is that on the finance committee side, we've talked heavily on how we invest to basically set up accounts that are invested in a way that returns based off of what your capital investment needs are.
That's where I was going.
Yep.
So, okay, I'm okay.
Good. So the only thing we would have is, if everything looks good, you would do adoption with the changes Barbara noted, and then Kim would coordinate that with the auditors.
Motion to approve the audit as presented with the comments that have been noted.
Yep.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 16, the water main crossing. So I think I provided a high-level overview. The first thing I do want to make in this section, and I'll turn it over to Austin then, is there was some confusion created when we put out in the initial blurb that it was a comms error. This was not communication between individuals. This was communication between software computers. So there was no communication error between individuals, although we were learning things as we went along, but that is not what caused this event. Secondly, I'd like to point out that even that error in the, we call it SCADA, the way computers talk to each other, was only initiated because of the break in the canal. If the break in the canal had not happened, this would not have, the communication, the SCADA failure would not have occurred. So the team, our IT group, is working with our SCADA vendor and rewriting that portion. We also are going to be doing a lessons learned because we do realize that there are areas that we could learn from to do better next time, not only on the water side, but for all of our utilities. And I see Betty's here, or
Brenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna be reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce to help with communications with the public and going forward. So Austin, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think the short answer was, it was the ask to provide an update of what we've done to date and where we're kind of headed with this. So the board discussed this last week. We've kind of accelerated our process forward. So right now, we have collectively between us and GMB, we have met with 3 contractors as requested. We went through those plans, we've went out, we've looked at the locations, and they've looked at the locations. Bid specs were sent out today. We've made contact with what I would say are the key, the lengthiest piece of permitting. So we've made contact with each one of those agencies. We've received feedback from both those agencies. I actually spoke directly with DENREC. That has a process to it. It is going through the public process as we speak. What I'm kind of going through is less than 20 days is the hope for that permit. So we're working with that agency. We've heard back from Army Corps. We're working through that as well. And then we have the minor agencies, which are, I call them minor, but just from the amount of feedback you would need. So the DELDOTs, the SCDs, DHSS, ODW. We're working through those as well. I think that's the biggest piece. Our time frame is to essentially turn these around in the next week or so, these quotes, the proposals, and then we would have internal discussions with GMB, hopefully circle back with the board either at the 25th board meeting or sooner, if it's possible. And we've urged each one of those contractors, the urgency from our standpoint, this project is, and we are getting the feedback from them that they sense that as well. Anything you would add?
So, Austin, you this is Charlie from GMB O'Donnell.
Yep.
You summarized the core in the DENREC subaqueous permits well. We're on continuously nudging those guys.
Yep.
The other permits, applications will be going in either by next Friday or early the following week to get those going. The DELDOTs, the SCDs, Office of Drinking Water, State Fire Marshal. We did tell the contractors they have until September 13th to get their proposals in to us. So at that point, we'll have them all in hand, and then we'll review them with Austin and make a recommendation to the board so that you can meet on the 25th or before.
The feedback we got was when we threw out the 13th date, just not knowing where they stood. A lot of the feedback was some of them would get it to us even sooner. So that's why I said flexibility. If we do get them sooner and they can be reviewed sooner, then obviously we will schedule that meeting sooner. And we will work towards notice to proceeds and wrapping up this. And the feedback from contractors on length of construction has also been very, very positive compared to what the original thought was.
So a couple things. We did the bid documents are put out so that we receive bids in 2 ways, with SRF requirements, including prevailing wages, and without. So we'll get those prices both ways, so then the board can make a decision. I know we're still working through SRF to figure out, their requirements on this fast track aspect of it. The contractors were very encouraging in terms of schedule. I think a lot of the pipe delivery delays that we lived through for several years, they're just starting to wind down a little bit on that, and you can get pipe a little quicker. Especially like a fusible PVC that goes underneath the canal is pretty readily available within 4 to 6 weeks.
And that's the other piece, and we talked about this last Friday, is that this project was funded, and we started this process a long time ago, and it was actually funded with the Common Header and Water Tower project as one big package, if you want to call it that. So we've reached out to DHSS on whether or not under an emergency exemption, they would allow us to not necessarily uphold to the bidding requirements as we discussed last Friday. I submitted that letter on Monday. And that is going to be then submitted to the EPA for feedback to see if this falls underneath the emergency exemption piece. So we're waiting to hear back from that. If it does, that's why Charlie had mentioned we're going after the piece that allows contractors to give the prevailing wage rates. Or on the flip side, if DHSS comes back and says, no, there's no exemption, then we could go about our own funding, meaning we fund it ourselves, and we don't have to do the prevailing wages. We also talked with a contractor where we kind of picked his brain on what prevailing wage impacts are, so what the additional cost is. Number was thrown out roughly 20%, but that's, you're playing that's kind of the situation that we have.
Are we setting a deadline for construction completion, or are we getting proposals and letting them tell you what the schedule is?
The way we set it up in the contract documents is that they have 126 days from the notice to proceed for substantial completion to complete the water system part of the project, so that and the way that we defined that was they would have the approval to operate from the Office of Drinking Water for the water system part, because that's really the key aspect of this, right? So then everything after that, the restoration of Anglers Road, any other cleanup that needs to be done, the restoration of Gills Neck Road and the bike path on this side, they have another, forget what it is, 2 months to get that done. So,
4 months for the water main to be in service.
126 days, that's
Yeah, okay.
18 weeks.
Okay.
So it's 4.5 months.
And we talked through that with the contractors because we essentially asked how fast could it be done. But we have to realize that there's time for procurement submittals, and it's factored in. But we are putting a limit or a time frame in there.
But actually, in addition, the bid award will be based upon
And that's,
time and cost. So if one bidder comes in much under,
Are you asking for
Yeah,
their
I think that's
schedule?
what Ben's going to tell you.
good.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going
That was my question,
Get ready
really.
to ask, say that. So we, as part of the bid, we've asked them to identify what the earliest on-site construction commencement would be, given a notice to proceed date of October 15th. That's what we're assuming, scheduling and permitting all works out. That's what we're targeting as the notice to proceed date.
I think to further answer your question, if they don't meet those if they don't meet the 126-day deadline for the water main contractually, there would be liquidated damages assessed at $1,500 a day.
That can be tough to get, but but it's a good thing.
I know, I mean,
Is there any thought in a bonus for completing early?
I said the same thing.
we did talk about that. No, it's not in there now. It's not in there now.
I brought up whether or not there was a reverse the incentive of doing it and completing it quicker.
Yeah.
and the only, just to reiterate, is I know we said on or before the 13th. Any conversations, the before is preferential. I mean, this is an exigent situation, and we really want to get moving.
Yep.
And, with the positive wording on the permitting. I know you guys are doing your best, so.
Is there any interest to ask the city for waiving some of the construction time schedules? I mean, allowable work times?
So what I
Andrew?
will say is,
Did you?
I was gonna play in this a little bit. So we told them what the city's, the construction schedule was 7 to 7. The contractors did ask about 24/7
Yeah.
work. What I'll tell you is, obviously it plays a factor in cost, but it reduces your time. The machine that actually is doing the drilling, the drill rig, sounds like a jet engine. So location of where that drill rig's set up, because most of the feedback we actually got was setting the drill rig up on the American Legion, which has the less
Yeah.
residential impact
Sure.
than on the opposite side. So it's a good question.
How long does the actual drilling take, would you guess?
About a month.
Yeah.
Like a week to set up everything, and then three, well, I think they were saying 2 to 4 weeks to actually do the drill.
Yeah, because you're doing fusing the pipe, and then the actual drill, I think, was two weeks or so. And then we're doing, the way that the project is set up is that it's open cut down American Legion Road, insert a valve on the 12 on Savannah Road. And then they would do 5, I think it's roughly 5 services, tie in on Savannah Road, and then you would have to go through the superchlorination, ODW approval through bacteria testing, and then bring the, pressure test as well, and then bring the main online.
So you don't need the private property easement that you had mentioned a couple weeks ago?
We are still working through that, Mike.
It's in progress.
Yeah.
Hopeful?
What about, because it won't be starting until October or later, do we know how many full-time residents are over on that part of the canal versus if it's all vacationers and the houses are vacant, maybe the city would be a little more willing to
I mean, I think
extend construction
in terms
time?
of the noise effect that Austin was describing,
Yeah,
I think you'll be able to hear that thing even if we set the machine up over by the wastewater treatment plant. People will hear it. But if it's set over here in the easement that you were talking about, Bob, you're right up against the back of several homes. And I think, at least I know the one on the corner is full-time resident.
I think October is still shoulder season down here.
yeah. But if you said you were planning on doing it American Legion side, roadside,
I think American Legion is a better option.
It all has to do with whatever side you set the machine up, the other side is where you have to lay the pipe because they drill the hole and then they pull the pipe back through. So it's really, well, both sides have a little bit of issues with laying out the pipe. Like on that side, we got to deal with the bike path somehow. We've got a few different ideas from contractors of how to do that without much pain. On this side, we got to check to see if there's enough room and, still the bike paths along that way. We think we can lay it all out mostly on this side too. So it might end up being that the other side, for noise reasons, set the machine up, lay the pipe down the bike path, not in the bike path, but beside it, and pull it through from this direction.
That's the update.
That's the update.
And I do want to thank, because
I
there's a
got
lot
one
of,
other question, Austin.
go ahead.
Well, speed is of the essence and so on. How confident are you in the current situation? I mean, should I light candles or?
Burn down trees?
I think the easiest answer, because of the complexity of this, and it plays into kind of how that Tuesday morning unfolded, you're talking about a 12-inch main, and the only way that you can see that leak when it is in the water is you have to stare at that water and see if you can see any change to what a normal, and it eddies through there.
Yeah.
The dive team that came in inspected both pipes. They had came back and said that the repair that was made previously, which was done in the 2022 timeframe, looked brand new. Meaning the band looked good. It was a stainless steel clamp. There wasn't any show of rust or anything like that. So I'm confident that the divers confirmed that everything looks good. I'm also what I would also mention is that when you compare the two pipes that were in question, one of them was heavily scoured, which means it didn't have much support underneath. This pipe was the opposite. This pipe was sitting on the bed, all but that one little section, enough to get your arms underneath of it before it took the dive, which then got a lot deeper real quick. In low tide, you can still see that pipe, but that's, that if I had to put my money on one of those pipes, it's the one that's in service now.
But it's a two-part question, right? So that's the one in terms of so right now, you had this is the emergency, this was the redundancy. With the other pipe offline, you now don't have the redundancy.
Correct.
So it's good to have the confidence and be aware of what that pipe is. Second part, which I think was Bob's question, is how confident are we, based on the feedback we're receiving and the progress to date, that it will be a quick construction, if I understand.
Is that how you asked? Like what he said, or the way that I interpreted it?
I think I was more with you, but.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll add this section.
But
I will tell you also that we have asked, and we talked with GMB about an emergency backup plan.
Okay.
If the 22 or 2020 pipe break reoccurs, then we're just left with the one. What can we do? And we have some brainstormed ideas on how we could respond quickly to that.
My shameless,
Because I gotta tell you, right, what's it?
I was gonna say my shameless plug was that was one of the topics that I wanted to discuss with people down at the Tricon conference.
Right, because I can tell you, I think we're at risk because we didn't expect this main to fail. And now we have no redundancy whatsoever. And it's great that everything's moving forward with the new crossing, which is a 16-inch line. But, you know,
Well, we do have that other pipe at the end of the canal.
right, as I said, but it's not, that's what we were on last week.
Right.
We can't maintain pressure out at the beach
Right.
or all the way at the end.
And we've discussed, like, as this project moves forward, can we come back to the main that's in service that has that repair on and do a much more robust repair so that it is your third line? And that's one of the pieces that we wanted to talk with some of these contractors to say, can you line a domestic water line and put, a CIP liner through it? Because it has no services on. So these are the thought processes that we're going to.
But every time my phone rings early in the morning, all right?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Board staff requests for agenda items.
Oh, you missed the
Oh, yeah, long range plan,
wastewater treatment.
Oh,
17.
sorry. So I think, so the county and Lewes are going to be presenting in front of the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners on September 9th, Monday. Is that September 9th? Okay. I'm losing track of my days. And the purpose of that presentation is to answer questions that came up in the last workshop. They will take no action at that meeting, but because the two new commissioners for Rehoboth Beach are not going to be seated until that afternoon. However, they will be invited to question and participate from the audience. They expect to take it to their next commissioners meeting, which is like 2 weeks after that. And then the commissioners can decide whether to author continued negotiations and drawing up details for an agreement that would be between Lewes, the county, and Rehoboth Beach. So that's where we are with the wastewater treatment plant long-range plan at this point. Austin, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, that's it.
I do have a question. Do they just need a simple majority
Yes.
on their side?
And, all right, then we'll move on to the requests for agenda items.
Don't know if it's premature or if this is the wrong venue, but I think at some point we need to talk about the Dark Skies Initiative and what BPW is willing to, I don't know, Andrew, is that just something we should deal with at joint?
Yeah, because I guess it's something that's looked at, our environmental subcommittee.
Right,
is
right.
looking at that, and I saw in the, agenda item 11 was struck, but I think that was an example. Old Town, I think, did call for some form of dark sky.
That came out of planning commission.
Yeah, so that was a question I had, is how you gonna be dealing with that as a,
Yeah, I think it's perfect for a joint meeting. However, as we've discussed before, we have no jurisdiction over streetlights. We maintain them, but it's by the city's orders relative to how many lumens, shielding, whatever else.
What I was gonna add is coming out of that joint meeting, one of the things that we started doing, and we've discussed this with Elle and Lorraine as they go through that grant piece, working with Amy and those folks. We have started, actually Mike has led this project, to GIS. We're trying to GIS every streetlight in this city. So I don't know, Mike, how far do you think you are so far? Percentage wise?
I'd say probably 75% of all
Yeah.
I have is the center part of the city, the whole part.
And that includes the actual GIS coordinates, pictures, condition, the light fixture type, all that. So it's essentially gonna be a turnkey inventory sheet for every streetlight in the city.
Does that include Savannah and Kings Highway?
It does.
Okay.
It's public lighting.
Yeah, and I said Mike, but Josh and Mike have been working conjointly on it.
And there was also a request to sort of think about a demonstration project, or maybe you already have one existing about what would be low-level lighting and.
I think the idea was getting all of the inventory and seeing what we have, like actual inventory, which is what fixtures are where, is a good start. My personal opinion is it's best to do that lighting project in an area that sees a lot of foot traffic so you can get the feedback, but then you'll probably get the most criticism in that aspect because of what it looks like. So it's kind of like, post, because you're gonna have post top, that's gonna be your first one, your post tops, which are gonna be, you go down Hornkill, you go down Powhatan Village, and then you're gonna have your Cobra heads. So you could probably do it as two separate and do the Cobra heads more in town and do your post tops in your neighborhoods. The only other place that you could do the post tops would be your second street lights. Those are very expensive because those are what we consider like a second street standard.
To think about, how about that street and that street?
You mean Franklin and Third? You could. Are there?
Just an idea.
Yeah, I don't know if there's post top. That's the only ones I don't know if we have.
No,
post
there's
top.
no post office. No.
But that's a good. I mean, we can look at those.
Austin,
Yeah.
if I don't mean to interrupt, but to just give you a quick update, we are just over 50% complete on capturing the streetlight inventory. We're also working that in conjunction with the 120 water project and the census. So we are working diligently. My ETA on obviously weather's a factor and other priorities, project priorities, but we are looking ambitiously mid to late September to have all that data over to you. So long as we don't have too many more interruptions.
Yeah. And like I said, Mike and Josh have been heading that up, and they've been playing tag team with all this different data. So kudos to them.
Mike has been doing a really good job. He's been the one out there collecting, and I've been compiling and processing all of the data. Yes, we are collecting a fair amount of metadata on each one of the streetlights, in addition to timestamps, etc. So.
Yeah.
Austin, can I add something to this?
Yep.
Just real quick, because I'm part of the environmental subcommittee as well. This is Charlie again from GMB. In the new subdivision code, dark sky lighting requirements are included. So every new subdivision that gets before city council, the board, and planning commission, they have to meet those requirements. But I do think it will be really important for the work that the committee is doing, the subcommittee, that there's BPW input, because we're developing a set of standards that are relatively general, like performance standards for dark sky lighting. And I know just in my brief discussion with Rhett, when he goes out and replaces a fixture or bulb fixture,
Same kind.
it's like some things, sometimes it's more difficult than other lights to make it dark sky lighting. Don't ask me to explain all that right now. He knows it very well. But to have his input with the committee, because we want to make sure that those performance standards are attainable with the existing street lights and other lights that are out there.
And we actually we were talking with Janelle on this, and we have contacts that can come in and give presentations to the environmental subcommittee on vendors that can provide some standards that can become and be adopted, via the city or via the board as, okay, subdivision streetlights are X, and that is dark sky variant, whatever it may be, or as a part of the submission package. So there's avenues. I like the kind of the joint piece to this. So yeah, I fully agree.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
So, call to the public.
Falling asleep back there. It wasn't easy to fall asleep back there. A lot of stuff going on. Brenda Afsel, 418 Park Avenue. I'm here today representing the citizens and friends of the Burton subdivision. And when I came, I had just one or two things to say, and now, doggone it, you've made me have to add a few things. First, we're here. I wanted to thank Austin. In the midst of all the chaos that he is going under, we sent him a message about the progress on the amendment, and he very kindly and in detail responded to that. So I was here to remind you all that we're still waiting to hear from that amendment, and to thank Austin that you can rub your head and pat your tummy at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which I think you're going to have to do. And that's another question. Will what's going on currently delay, if this amendment comes through and we get this money, will the current fiasco delay doing our work? And
I don't foresee it delaying it at all.
thank you. Wanted to hear that. I also had heard a rumor that those ARPA funds were somewhere floating out there before you discussed it, and I was wondering if any of that could have been thrown towards our cause, because, as you know, we have 3 other streets that need to be done at the same time, but I have heard where you plan on putting it, and that sounds like an important place. But I'm wondering if you already had funding going towards that, if you're adding the ARPA fund to there, is there any money there that was originally put to the tower that could be put over into our issue? So I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion. Unless anybody has an answer to that right now.
We'd still be beholden to the contract, and he has to be under contract.
Yeah, so that project was funded. So the difference here is the way that the board looked at the water tower project, the goal was to do a 750. They wanted to see what the delta was to a 1 million gallon tower, because we're also doing the common header project. The ARPA funds could be used to make that jump up to the 1 million gallon tower, which adds the additional storage for the entire town, looking into the future. Because it's a funded project, what we would be doing there is taking away from the already funded amount. So if we were given 5.2 million, now let's just say the contract's 5.2 for ease of reference, we would only be spending 4.3 million. But it's already funded through SRF. So it's kind of a timing situation for us, because it has to be under contract. And that's what Ellen, Lorraine, and I were discussing, because you physically, I think it has to be written into a contract with a contractor, meaning you are.
And we're not at the point that you could do that for our situation?
No.
That's what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
because that will go through like loan documents and then go through engineering, et cetera.
Got it.
However, I think the point of your question is it will go back into the reserves, which is how we fund all of our capital projects and how we set the capital project schedules.
Yeah.
So the trickle down, how much other funding would be allowed to, or that would allow us to spend, maybe.
That brought another question. I very quickly reviewed your audit earlier today, looking for if you have a rainy day fund anywhere, and I wasn't sure if there's a rainy day fund that you have.
That would be the reserve account. That's the short answer.
How do you decide when to use that? Because boy, it's raining. So I just throwing that out there. If there's lots of stuff that we want to do.
There's lots of constraints on that.
Well, no, so you use, that money is used to reinvest. So for example, you have restricted and non-restricted. Restricted being your impact fees, which is essentially you take those impact fees, you reinvest them into the system. You have your unrestricted, which doesn't have a specific tie to it, which means you can use it for whatever you want. We have a cash reserve policy which says you need to be at X, and that is your cushion. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Your O&M costs, your capital budgeting costs, your self-insurance, your customer deposits, all that gets funneled into, and Richard and we have been working on the finance side. So you have to have a minimum cash reserve, and that's a policy. So historically, we've actually been below that. So we've been trying to build it back up. And then the idea is you use those funds to reinvest back into the system.
Is that reported anywhere on your budgets and things about how much you're over that? I just wonder where I should look to see.
So I'm pretty sure Kim puts it in for budgeting, which would have been back in March. I was away. I had left.
I'll look for it. I'll look for it, and maybe if I can't find it, I can ask somebody where it is. Okay, two other things that came up while you were talking. One is the current situation you're in, and the communication. I hope there will be a critique afterwards with the communication that went out to community. I know that I was able to communicate to my 80 families in the Burton subdivision 3 hours faster than you all did. You know, I think part of that was I woke up, there was no water pressure. I went to your site right away. I didn't see anything on the site, but I went, we got a problem because it wasn't in my house. I ran to the market, I bought all the water I could find. I came home, I put it out on the porch for the neighbors, and I sent them a message immediately saying, go to your website, look for this. How many people are on your listserv? Because I know people didn't hear from you for a long time.
So the email blast is 4,000, a little over 4,000. I'm gonna say like
That's a lot.
4,100 or so.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that went out, I'm sorry, I'm having a heat stroke up here. That went out at about 10 o'clock.
Yes, I believe it was just before 10, and I'm gonna add, so Facebook, going through this, so Facebook and the website were updated as of 6:18 or 19 a.m. The website, or the email blast, what I'll say is email blast was held in abeyance until after talking with DHSS because we didn't know if the boil water notice was coming.
And see, that was the issue, is that folks for several hours were drinking the water and doing everything. They didn't know what they should do. And plus, when you boil water, and we already have a heavy metal in our water with the iron, it doesn't go to another planet when you build it. When you boil it, it stays in and actually concentrates. So you start thinking about anybody making formula or something, they're getting a bolus of what you're trying to protect against. So it was just, we just wondered what was going on, and the communication itself, and I think you brought it up, Tom, saying it's a communication error. People had no idea what that meant. So the language that we got needs to be age appropriate or grade appropriate or whatever, so that we more understand what's going on.
I'm probably one of the worst. We have to stop talking in jargon. We understand that engineering language is not common language, and we should not expect the public to understand.
Yeah, because it
I
just
don't want to talk
creates.
down to people,
Yeah.
but it has to be at a level.
Well, people just begin not to trust. They get frustrated, and you all were dancing as fast as you could, but they didn't know that. And my final thought is, when you were talking about your strategic plan, I was really surprised that you said the survey. What survey? I'm here, one of our block captains here, we can get a survey. How many survey responses did you get?
I'd have to go back and check. But we sent that via our email blast. So the survey was developed by Spot, Stevens, and McCoy. I mean,
do you know what kind of response you got, Austin? Be interesting.
I heard the response from your area was high.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure. I don't want to quote how many was actually received.
It was not an insignificant number.
Good. Okay, that's good to hear.
It was a positive response.
Good.
Positive level of response.
Didn't get one.
But with surveys, I mean,
I know. Well, we've done surveys too, and even if you get 100, I would be surprised and pleased. But I think I was hearing from press and perhaps from Bob that we need to be involved. I hear you talking about your special people, the hospital and the, we need to have representatives there from the community because they're going to look at your strategic plan afterwards and they're going to have a hissy fit if there are things in it that they weren't part of and didn't understand. So I'm just suggesting that.
Well, that's what the workshop is for. I mean,
I wasn't sure I understood that from your discussion.
But it's for the general public, which is why I was suggesting we try to do it at the Rollins Center.
Okay, because there will be a lot of people there. That's good. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
So,
One thing, just kind of off the record, about the survey that was done. All the information about. Yeah, I'm just saying.
all right, call to the press. Bill Scholl had said that he was going, he's there?
Raise his hand.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name's Bill Schmidt, 423 Park.
Oh,
So public comment.
it's public comment. Okay. Yeah, it's,
You can hear me?
yes.
Okay, I would just like to add my agreement with Brenda's on the $900,000 transfer to another project. I do think you have an opportunity to put it on the Burton project coming up, and that it frees up money that was on the other project. So I will be watching that closely. Okay. And I think she presented the point, and I think there were points back that were very good. But having worked for a public utility, I kind of know how extra money floats around. So I just want to make sure you're aware that we'll be watching that. Thank you.
Thank you. So is Bill?
He hasn't raised his hand.
Yeah, Bill Scholl said that he was not going to be able, he was going to listen to it afterwards and, come back with any questions. So he was at the site this morning and I have talked with him, Austin's talked with him. So we'll keep Bill informed. All right. Have a motion to go to open, to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.